Hey there, McAllister here with Toasty DIY, and today is going to be my first actual map being made in Canvas of Kings. In my last video, I talked about the software, just getting in there and trying it for the first time, but then I got a comment from the map maker themselves, or the tool maker, and they said that I should try building a village from Lord of the Rings. So this is what I'm doing here. As you see on screen now, I am attempting to make the village of Bree from Lord of the Rings. I picked this one because Minas Tirith was going to be too hard for somebody who's new to the software, and Rohan was going to be too elevated in order to do it. Now, I ran into an elevation issue when it came to the village of Bree, where the Prancing Pony is, where they're sent to when they leave the Shire. I picked this town because it has the aesthetic, of more medieval European cottage kind of village, and I thought that would be simpler, and that matched the art style of Canvas of the Kings, I thought, better than anything else. Going through the tool, I really had one major problem, but everything else was pretty seamless. If I wasn't following a map, I wouldn't have had to worry about the scale of things. I think by the end of it, my scale is off, but the intention is there. I think this would work fine for a fantasy village, but I don't think it's the perfect representation of Bree. Outside of scale, the one thing that was really difficult is elevation. It's the reason I didn't do Rohan, but I didn't really consider the Breeze Hills, I think they're called, behind Bree. Or the Bree Hills. I don't know if they had breeze to it, but the hills behind it, I couldn't really figure out how to do that, and it wasn't something I was going to spend a ton of time just working on. I figured if I'm going to make a map, I'm going to make mistakes, so I might as well make them while I learn and do the things I enjoy so I can get further in the program. So I just made kind of a stark cliff face that acts as my, backing of the village of Bree, and then just added some trees to it to help fill it out. But honestly, I added trees in places where I didn't know what to do. I feel like the map texture, when you don't have anything there, either requires a lot of detail of setting things down, or maybe a plot tool that might help me change and make, I love a plot tool that would add just a basic, what seems to be a roughly degrading hill. Might be nice. Then I could build things on top of it, or things like that. But I feel like the ground textures are lacking, but not necessarily from the perspective of they need to add more. I think it's just they're not immediately accessible to where you know where you'd put things. I feel like it's hard for me to figure out where do I put grass, where do I put that, what's already on the screen. When you're making a map, from a standpoint of a world map, it's easy. You have a brush tool for land. If it's snowy, make it kind of white. If it's, grassy, make it green. If it's jungle, dark green. Swamp, a different shade of dark green. You've got these different ideas, but with this being a black and white map maker, it's hard for me to wrap my head around how the ground should be textured in certain spots, especially given elevation. Map maker I really like is Mike Schley, and I'll put a picture here of how he does his hills, and I think it's a really cool way of showing elevation. I can't wrap my head around how those strokes make me know it's a hill, but I know it's a hill, and I would like to be able to add hills into my artwork. I think that's cool. So when making Bree, I had a fun time. It was not the hardest thing in the world. I think this was an hour, maybe my second hour ever on the program. So if you're somebody who's looking to try making maps and you want, I would describe a more low fantasy setting. I think these maps are perfect for you because a lot of the villages will look similar. If you're a very high fantasy player, you may not like this, but you could bring in custom assets. I don't know exactly how to do them yet, but it's an option in there. But if you're high fantasy, these towns are going to be more mundane and calm. Then you're going to get cities built between two ridges into the face of a cliff. You're probably not going to be able to represent that very well here unless you're a far more talented individual than myself. But if you're just somebody who's getting the tool to take the ease of making maps off of you, I think it's great. The way it does tree lines is, I love that. That's chef's kiss. I love the way the trees look with their shadows, and you can add clouds to add some realism to it. I think it's a really cool software. I think I like it more for the regional maps than I will the actual zoomed in dungeon maps, but I've never been a big proponent of those. I've usually just drawn it on a whiteboard when I would do it. But if you're an online player and you like playing on Roll20, this could be really cool to just quickly draft up towns. I think it'd be simple to do once you have the hang of it. There are some instances where the Control Z doesn't seem to work the way I want it to. If you click on a path, for instance, and it shows you a little cogwheel, you can hit the cogwheel. It will auto-populate houses on the side of it. If you hit Control Z, it won't unpopulate those different things. And at one point, I believe I undid a road, and I tried to Control Z to add the road back, and there's no undoing a delete path option, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I was hitting the wrong buttons, or maybe my computer was being weird, but that caught me off guard. So I had a couple technical difficulties while building this town, though otherwise, I think it was pretty consistent. I think if you knew the quirks of the tool, the way that, for work, I know Adobe Premiere. Adobe Premiere is a great software. People will say they don't like it because it's buggy and crashy. And it's true. It can do all those things, but once you get to know the software or you get to know a version of it and you don't update it, you start to learn its quirks. And sometimes it's just kind of like that computer karma where you show up and your mom swears it won't go to the next screen, then you tap it a couple times. Or that moment when you know a program's froze but nothing is showing saying it's frozen, but you have that feeling, just that gut reaction. I think if you had that level of intimacy with this tool, you could pop out some really cool things. So the name of the software is Canvas of Kings. So go check it out on Steam. It's not very expensive and it's really cool. So it's kind of fun to play with if you are a map maker or somebody that just enjoys it. So thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, leave in the comments down below. Or if you have any ideas for another town or other, let me know. I'd be really curious to come back and figure out if there's a way to do hills. If you all know any good people that make guides on the software, do make me aware. I would love to know. I do like checking out videos for people who like map making softwares. I know it's a small niche, but I find it really cool. So thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, like I said, down below, and peace.